Audio. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is a test, real quick, just to make sure the entire system is working. Welcome to the Darkwolfs Den Show. We will be starting now. All that and more coming up here in just 1984, during a radio voice test, U.S. President Ronald Reagan jokes that he, quote, signed legislation to outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes, end quote. Thank goodness at the time that was a joke, right? Anyway, I found this random fact of the day and thought it was pretty funny. So that is today's history. And you gotta love Ronald Reagan, right? I've been seeing a lot of Ronald Reagan memes and quotes going around lately, and I gotta say he was one of my favorite presidents. Though many would argue with me, I'd still say he was one of the best in American history. Which brings us to the next segment for tonight.
Say what?
And you guys know, normally this is the section that I would do a quote of the day, but upon looking for the quote of the day for Connecticut today, I ran across something even better for this segment. Check this out, ladies and gentlemen. This is a law in Connecticut. It is against the law to educate dogs in Connecticut. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. No teaching Fido arithmetic, writing, or reading, because that is still against the law there, even though I'm not entirely sure why you would want to try to begin with, even though that would be a pretty neat party trick, right? Still, if you do it in Connecticut, you will be breaking the law. Say what? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is today's segment of
Say what?
And these laws are getting crazier and more ridiculous by the day, right, ladies and gentlemen? Again, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. Thank you, everybody, that has been giving me such love and support this whole month that I've been off of the air. It has really, really meant a lot to me, guys. We did finally get our equipment here. That was a heck of a journey. I will talk more about my journey probably tomorrow night. But the equipment took about 2 weeks behind me traveling here. There has been a lot of issues with the supply line system as of late, so I get it. There were some issues. I'm not going to name the service shipping company on the air that took so long to do it, but I will tell you that it rhymes with cups, if that tells you anything. But they did finally come through and get my stuff shipped across the country. We are back on the air, ladies and gentlemen, back on every Wednesday and Thursday night right here on Ripon Common Sense Radio Network. And huge shout out to AJ the Rippin' Rabbit for carrying it these last couple weeks by himself. I really appreciate you, AJ. It is an absolute honor and pleasure to be back on the air and doing these shows, guys. And I've missed every last one of you guys in the chat over there, guys. It is so great to see every last one of you guys. And it has been an absolutely incredible journey getting to where I am now. And I will tell you guys all about that amazing journey tomorrow night, because it's got some really fun little twists and turns. But I ended up with my grandchildren, actually, and they are actually here in studio with me. So I would like to introduce you to my two amazing grandchildren. This is the youngest. I'm not going to put his name on the air, but come on up and say hi, Bubby.
Hi.
Yep, that's my little youngest. Just started kindergarten this year. I'm so proud of him. And then my oldest grandson, he just started, second grade, right? Yeah? Mm-hmm. All right. You want to go ahead and say hi to the people?
Hi.
You just said hi to a bunch of people all the way across the world. Isn't that cool? High five, Bubby. High five, Bubbies. All right. Thank you, boys. I love you. Oh, hugs. I love my bubbies. All right, ladies and gentlemen, those are my amazing grandchildren. Those are one of the many reasons that I do what I do for you guys. I hope to bring them up and teach them everything that I'm able to teach you guys week after week. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to teaching tonight about the state of mystery of Connecticut. One paranormal fact I can tell you about Connecticut right off the rip is that it is the home of the International Mandela Effect Conference. That's right. I am, of course, the father of the International Mandela Effect Conference, and the actual company is based out of Connecticut. So I just thought that was a neat little side bit of information to throw in there. But for those that may or may not know how we do this State of Mystery series, of course, it's been a couple weeks and we've done it. So what we're doing is we're going through the entire alphabet, state by state, and we begin covering a cryptid or a creature that science said could not exist, and then we cover the ghost stories and finally the UFO stories in each state. And Connecticut is
trap looking over the Connecticut town of Meridian. It extends from Long Island Sound to the Connecticut Valley in Massachusetts. It's quite the ecosystem, with rare plant and animal communities, chestnut oak savannas, and its own unique microclimate, thanks to its rock-trap terrain. Such a unique place deserves an equally unique ghost story.
And the black dog is just that story.
In the April-June publications of the Connecticut Quarterly, an amateur writer and a geologist, W.H.C. Pynchon, wrote about an encounter with a ghostly apparition resembling a jet black dog. According to Pynchon, that February, a young geologist and a friend, Herbert Marshall, were conducting geological research on the hills, specifically West Peak, when they saw a small dog. It wasn't the first time the geologist saw the dog, but it was Marshall's second.
And this is where the story takes an interesting twist, because most creatures are, if they're like the Mothman, they're considered a bad omen or something like that. But seeing this dog in a series or number of times actually has a very, very important meaning to it.
Why is this important? Because according to legend, if you see the dog once, it will bring joy and good luck.
So one sighting, joy and good luck.
See it twice, it will bring bad luck and a warning.
So to see this black dog 2 times is a bad luck and a warning. But you do not want to see this dog a 3rd time. Tell us, our friend Cryptid Quest over here, what happens if you see the dog 3 times?
See it 3 times, it will bring death. Shortly after, while scaling the mountain, they saw the dog again. Marshall slipped and fell to his death. When rescuers retrieved the body, they found a black dog looking over it.
So, I got a question. In all seriousness, so this dog is now responsible for the death of this guy because he's now seen the dog 3 times, but the guys that are coming to clean up the scene and collect the body are just seeing it for the first time. So does that mean they get good luck when they leave? I mean, it's the first time they've seen it, right? As sad as the story is, it is intriguing just the same, right?
6 years later, the unnamed geologist went missing. Despite his encounters with the black dog, he continued his research into the hills, risking a 3rd sighting. Weeks later, his body was found at the base of West Peak. He was the 5th person who have died on the hills in a span of 30 years.
And of course, that is a rugged terrain, and people die in dangerous situations all the time. But it is claimed that he did see the dog, the black dog, again 3 times.
Pynchon's story is the earliest account of the dog in publication, so that might be the case. However, there have been other stories besides Pynchon's. Another story tells of 2 hikers trailing the hills for a weekend. Come nightfall, a storm raged, but one of the hikers decided to scout out the land anyways, while the other stayed inside a rented house. That night, the hiker saw the dog, though it was friendly and playful. The next day, the hiker saw the dog again, but as they did, the unfortunate witness slipped and fell, breaking his leg. The 2 decided not to test their luck and left the hills.
Which sounds like an incredibly smart move to me. There's another creature of lore in Connecticut, and this is one that I had never actually heard of, but is very, very intriguing as a cryptid researcher. This one is named the Glowacus.
But yes, in this case, it has to do with another creature, another fantastical creature found somewhere out there in the U.S. In this case, it was in the dawn of World War II, and then also apparently very recently, back in 2015. Has a very unique name, just like all of the other lumberjack tales. In this case, it's known as the glaucus, and I'll explain a little bit what that name specifically means. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating info associated with the glaucus. So what is this creature? What is this lumberjack cryptid? Well, yet again, it's a creature that was found during the early 19th, maybe 20th century here in North America. Unlike some of the other creatures, though, that I've talked about in the past, where they go back into the old frontier days, this one, though, at the earliest was in the pre-World War II era. In fact, it was probably around 1939 that it was its first, at least, recorded entrance. That doesn't mean that it had, that was it, there weren't any earlier ones. No, there probably was a lot of other ones, but this one has just happened to be the very first recorded one.
And as we know, a lot of paranormal experiences, as well as other things in this world, get very underreported, as we know, and some not even reported at all, because in the case of the paranormal, a lot of people would laugh at you and ridicule you in any generation, it seems. So even if you did see something out of place, you were less likely to say something about it. However, the one that didn't until the 30s, and perhaps it didn't show up until the 30s. I mean, that's always a possibility, right? But what does it look like? What kind of creature are we dealing with here?
And let's go ahead first, and we'll talk about its physical characteristics. So much like with all the other lumberjack tales, this one is out there. It seems to be a creature that is a cross, a mishmash between a bear, a panther, and a lion. That's right. All those three creatures all in one somehow is this cryptid. Who knows how that happened? Who knows how it originated? Was it evolution? Was it something else? But at least according to eyewitness reports, multiple of them in fact, and some of them even reported, not just on a newspaper, but also on radio, that's how they described here. In fact, in a minute, I'll go into a complete detailed story regarding an encounter. But that's how it looks like. Imagine something involving a bear, a panther, and a lion. It seems like not all of them are dominating the other. Instead, it's just like a perfect mixture of these creatures, and that's what you have.
I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that one because, as much as I'd love to point at government lab and say, that's a government experiment gone wrong, we do have things in this world like the duck-billed platypus, so that's not too far of a stretch of the imagination to think it could be a natural creature either, right? So go ahead and put a 1 in the chat room there if you think it's a natural evolution like the duck-billed platypus or other crazy-looking creatures like that. Or go ahead and put a 2 in the chat room if you think it's a man-made experiment out of a lab that has escaped, like other experiments that we know of that have escaped from labs recently. But let me know what you guys think over there in the comment section real quick on the YouTube chats.
The glaucus also has another different name known as the northern devil cat, and if you wanted to find its locations, you can go here. You can go to Glastonbury, Connecticut, which seems to be one location. You can also go to Loveland, Colorado, and then those of you in Fort Collins, Colorado, also have a chance of running into this creature. So how about that? 3 locations in one when it comes to this cryptid.
And of course, we covered Colorado, interestingly enough, just last week. Another incredibly interesting fact about this cryptid is that it has a very distinct sound.
And then if you wanted to at least hear this creature rather than see it, a good chance will be this. If you happen to hear a screech, a far off screech somewhere out there in the distance, who knows how far away in the forests, and it sounds like what's considered the cackle of a hyena, then you're coming across this glaucus. So if you ever happen to be out there, maybe hunting, doing some kind of hunting, or maybe just enjoying the forest on your own or with family, and you hear that, then that's when you know that this creature is around. One last thing too about its characteristics: this creature is blind. Apparently it has no vision, but it makes up for it with a very, very strong sense of smell, and then also some kind of bat radar, if you will, when it comes to sound waves. So this creature is able to use whatever it has in terms of that radar, or whatever it has in terms of those sound waves, to create a mental picture, and then that's how it's able to find its prey or to find its surroundings.
And once again, we know of many creatures that use echolocation, from bats to dolphins, so that's again not out of the realm of possibility.
One last thing too about its characteristics, more on the mystical side: if you run into this creature, you can best try to avoid looking at its eyes, because if you do so, it apparently has some kind of hypnotic feature, enough so that it can wipe the memory of anyone it lays its eyes upon. Who knows how that happens, but then again, that all has to do with the fantastical nature of these cryptids, of these lumberjack cryptids, and how that happens. So maybe it's just something else, something entirely different, something natural, but we just happen to see it more on the mystical side. But that's one of the other characteristics of this Glaucus.
And definitely not a normal characteristic that we find for cryptids.
Now, as far as its name and why it has that name, it has to do with this. It pretty much was the first couple of letters of Glastonbury, again, which was a location that it was found. And then wacky, they took, in this case, the word whack from it. And then also us, which is apparently how most animals end whenever they're phrased in Latin. So Glastonbury, wacky, and us. Mix those together, just like this cryptid, and you have Glaucus. That's essentially where the name comes from. Neat, huh? When it comes to this, I don't recall any other creature out there that I've talked about in the past that was done like this when it came to its name. So it definitely stands out.
And I will agree, as a cryptozoologist, the naming convention here is extremely unique among other naming conventions for creatures.
Now, as far as actual sightings, yes, in fact, one of the best recorded sightings came from a reporter from a place called, a newspaper called the Hartford Courant, and here's what he stated.
And just to reiterate, as he stated, this is directly from a newspaper from that era.
This was the one I was telling you earlier that I was going to go into detail. I'll just read it exactly as it shows. It says, this reporter states, "I was working as a young reporter on the Hartford Courant that year when World War II was just in the wings, but we were preoccupied with the developing story about this Glastonbury creature that howled at night, slipped in and out of view, and then caused dogs, cats, and small farm animals to disappear."
And as we know, that is not the only cryptid that normally has been known for stealing and eating creatures. As we know, the wild man of Winstead, as they call it in Connecticut, or the Bigfoot, has been in every single state we've covered so far. Also, another creature out of Connecticut, one we don't see in every state, is the Sea Serpents. Check this out, guys.
Hidden within the undulating arm of the Connecticut River is a serpent that has frightened those who've lived on its banks since colonists first settled there.
So these reports have been coming in since colonists first colonized Connecticut to begin with. Now, that's a funny word to say after a while. Kind of gets challenging after a while, right? But yeah, these reports have been coming in pretty much since day one.
Often has been described as an eel or snake-like serpent over 100 feet long. Though over the past 300 years, it has been spotted by people across 3 states, it still appears to remain a mystery.